Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Lassoed by Marriage book club. We are on week 6, and the story this week is called Not So Pretty Penny by Amy Lillard. And I'm going to have Amy introduce herself and tell us where she's coming from tonight, and she's going to take it from here and tell us about her story. And then we'll have a question and answer time, and that's about it. So welcome, Amy.
Hi, thanks. I'm actually in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's probably about 60 degrees right now, though we're supposed to have a cold front come in and get some rain and snow tomorrow. But Not So Pretty Penny. I went through today and watched a few of the other videos kind of preparing for today, and it's so funny because Angela Bell said she claimed the oddball. I think I'm the oddball of the group because I'm the only one that historical romance is not my first genre. I actually write Amish romance, a lot of it. That's what people mostly know me for. I write a little bit of everything, but that's the majority of my work. But I first started writing and with historical romance eons ago. And then it moved to contemporary and this and that, and one thing led to another, and the Amish thing came about. But my agent gave me the opportunity to do this call out for Barber, and I jumped on it because I love historical romances. Not So Pretty Penny came about backwards. It came with the title first, which I don't think many people come up with the title for a novella or a novel, and then build a story around it. But everybody knows about pretty pennies because everything that's expensive costs a pretty penny. Well, what if Penny's not so pretty? So Penny was born in my head, and she stuck around for a little while. And I didn't know who she was at first, but if she's not pretty, then how does she find her love? So that's how the story began. Then from there, I ended up with Wash. I guess you could say that this novella is a compilation of little bits and pieces of things that somehow made their way together. Wash's name actually came from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. And if you remember when the guys go to the farm and they go to one of them's cousin, his name was Wash. So I made it George Washington Brannock, and Wash was born because I wasn't sure that Wash Hogwallop was the best name for my hero. So that's how Wash got in the deal. Then Penny had to come about. I had to get her a reason to need to get married, and I don't know if any of you have read any mail order bride books. It's just really interesting to me how back in the day when the men started going west, that left the women by themselves in the east, and the men were most of the ones that traveled and did all these adventures. Well, they needed women to come west with them, and that's when the mail order bride was born. Basically, if a woman was in the east and she didn't have means of support, say her husband died or her family died, or she decided she was going to take this big adventure and ended up in America with no means of support, she was pretty much fated to become a woman of ill repute or a washerwoman, and sometimes those were basically the same thing. And they had to have a way to survive, so they would take these mail order positions and go out west. Well, that really started in the early 1800s, especially during the 1840s when the gold rush came out. But then we had the Civil War 20 years later, and then there was this lack of men because all these men had gone to war and died. Some of them never came back. Some of them came back years and years later. And so the women were left with no visible means of support in the West, and that's where Penny finds herself. And they actually did have hanging husbands. So this was a historical thing. I read a book about it a long, long time ago. It was called The Wives of Bowie Stowe, and he married woman so that he could escape the gallows, and he was already married. So it was kind of a great book. It's a long time ago, but I still have it. It's on my keeper shelf. So I always thought one day I'm going to write a hanging husband. So as I'm getting ready to think about this book, we watched a movie called Going South. Actually, it's Going South. It actually has the apostrophe over the N. It's got Jack Nicholson and Mary Steenburgen. I know I'm probably butchering her name, but you know who she is. And she buys him on the gallows. And the funny thing is a lot of the men didn't actually want to get married. A lot of them said, no, I don't want to get married. You can hang me. I'd rather hang than marry somebody I don't know. There was actually a poem written way back when, and the guy said that the pain of the hangman's noose was much shorter and quicker than the pain of matrimony. So I know, so bad. But Wash wants his revenge and his vengeance on the man that framed him. So he says, yeah, he'll marry Penny. So that's where the story came from, little bits and pieces of here and there. I think it's fun like that because my favorite quote is from Alfred Lord Tennyson, and it is, I am a part of all that I've met, and that's the absolute truth. I absorb all these little things around me, and then they come out in stories and little bits and pieces here and there, never in one big chunk, but I think that's good. So it all started with the title. And then the one thing I love about this collection in my story is it's a marriage of convenience or inconvenience, depending on who you ask. I love taking two characters who don't know each other, even if they do know each other. When you throw a marriage certificate into the deal, it's a whole different ball game at that point. Attitudes change, perceptions change. So I think it's nothing more fun than taking two people and pushing them together. Now you're married. What do you do now? And that's where they find themselves. Looking at my notes here, I love this story. The inspiration for Penny is Sandra Bernhardt. I don't know if any of you are familiar with her. She's got very strong features. She makes me think if Mick Jagger was a woman, that's what he would look like. She's not very pretty, but there's something about her that draws us in. It draws me in, and I'm very attracted to her in that manner. I want to see what she's doing. I want to see what her hair looks like. But she's kind of tough, and she's strong, and she's striking, and that's the word that Penny's dad uses to describe her as striking, and I think Wash does at one point too. So I just thought it would be really neat to take a heroine that's not delicate and not blonde and not blue-eyed, and because that's so easy to take the beautiful girl and find her a husband. So Penny is not the beautiful one, except she's beautiful on the inside. And that's not something she can see in the mirror, but I love that Wash can see that in her. The biggest challenge of writing this novella was their isolation on the farm. And it didn't seem like much of a problem when I sat down and wrote the synopsis, because here's basically what happens. Barbara goes, we're doing a collection of novellas set in whatever, Texas in the 1850s, come up with a story and submit. So you want to get your story in. So everybody sits down and types furiously, trying to get their story in, and then you get called to do your story, and you have to come up with the story then. And some things work and some things don't. So in this story, it worked up until the point that they were on the farm. That's why he's there. He's there to farm her land, bring in her crops, keep her farm stable until her dad and her brother come home. And so they're isolated. And it was really a fun challenge to have to bring people out to the farm to them, because they can't very well farm in town. So that was the biggest challenge on this book for me. I you know, of course, I had the preacher's wife come out, and her other love interest come out, which was a love interest in his own mind. Has everybody read it?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I thought that's what y'all were doing, but I wanted to make sure. So when Jackson comes out, you know, so I kept having to bring people into their world instead of them going out into town. So that posed a big challenge for me. Plus, then you have breakfast, lunch, dinner, in between, farming, you know, milk the cow, all this little chore stuff of every day, and it was a challenge to keep that flowing without it getting stuck on a routine. But that having such few words is also a challenge too. You think, oh, I've got plenty of words to do, you know, this or that and the other, and then you don't. You just don't. So every word has to count on those novellas. But I think they're super fun because you can sit down and read them in an afternoon. A little mini escape, a little mini vacation, and then you can put it down, and if you can't get back to it for a couple of days, I don't know about anybody else's life, but mine tends to be pretty crazy. I am a full-time writer, so this is what I do all day. I write in Facebook and email, and write in Facebook and email, and make up stories and check to see if Barbara needs any more novellas, because they are like super, super fun. I think the next challenge I had in this novella was redeeming Wash. It was kind of hard because I wanted him to be guilty, but I didn't want him to be guilty because it would be so much easier to redeem him in a novella if he wasn't guilty. So I had an internal struggle with how I wanted that story to come out, but I like that he was innocent of the charges, and that he had gone to jail for no reason. That doesn't happen a lot, but you think about back then, it was one man's word against another. There was no DNA testing. There were not a lot of cops to go do any kind of investigation. Your sheriff was usually in the West, was the biggest, baddest, toughest guy they could find, so that he would chase off the other big, bad, tough guys. So there wasn't a lot of integrity in that position. But Wash was really special to me because he wanted his vengeance, and he thinks he's lost his faith, and he hasn't. And they are such two of a kind, wherein Penny can't see how beautiful she is on the inside, and he can't see that his faith is there. So that was fun for me to bring that out of the two of them. I've enjoyed watching the other videos and listening to everybody talk about the research they did. It was so funny today. I got to watch the Angela Bell video, the Angela that wrote the one in England. She is so cute, and I loved her talking about all the research she does, and I love history, so I have to chop myself off and cut myself. So I have to start writing, and then I need a detail, and then I go research, and I come right back, or I will spend all day on the web looking at history sites and checking out things that I'm not writing. So I think it's really interesting how the people, the different writers do their different research and how we take care of these things that we need. I loved all her English stuff. That was so much fun. And that she had such highbrow heroines, and then I tend to take a workaday heroine and usually a workaday hero. I like taking those average people. And I love making things fall apart because I think my life reflects that a lot. And things going smooth and then it all crumbles. And that's kind of how she is in the beginning, where she's got to make this decision to marry this man she doesn't know. Does anybody have any questions? I love to talk to people and have that interaction. It seems like that's so much fun for me. So did anybody have a question that we can talk about right now?
I have one.
Yeah.
Does your ideas for your stories come from you, or does your publisher suggest it and then you research it? What do you start?
The Barber novellas are really neat because they come up with a basic concept. So the concept can be very, very vague. I was in the Oregon Trail collection that Barber did as well, and if you haven't seen that book, it looks just like the Lassoed by Marriage book. It's just got those beautiful pages and that really neat cover, and it's 9 stories too, and the only criteria was they had to take place somehow around the Oregon Trail. So if they never left Missouri, that was fine because they were getting on the Oregon Trail. Or if they made it all the way to Oregon at the beginning of the book, and that was fine, they were in Oregon. And so they leave you a big, broad palette to kind of paint your picture on. I believe when the call went out for this one, it was for courageous brides. And so I thought Penny was pretty courageous marching into that jailhouse and picking out a husband of the dirty, unkempt, who knew what kind of low lives were lurking in there. But then when they got so many good suggestions and good submissions for the series, they ended up making 2 stories. So there came a Courageous Brides, and then there came the Lassoed by Marriage Brides, which I believe they picked out all the ones that had like quick marriages or somehow a marriage that made the relationship, and that's what Penny and Wash had. But from there, like anything else comes out, like just of myself, like my Amish books, that's our ideas that I come up with. Anything else I write, usually it's not, unless a publisher specifically asks for something. So I have a novella that's Amish that's releasing tomorrow, and it was an idea that very loosely my editor came up with, because we were talking about what we were going to do with the series next, and he said, you've mentioned a sewing circle 2 or 3 times, why not have the women of the sewing circle? So it's kind of a spin-off, and it's kind of not. So it just depends. Those ideas, they can be given to you by the publisher, or you can just say, hey, I've got this great idea, here it is. Of course, it's much easier once you've gotten into the publishing and have a relationship with your editor, because then you can brainstorm a little bit with them, and they will be a little more candid about what they're looking for and what they want, to have out. Because it takes a year. We write something, and then in a year it'll come out. It's a big time gap there.
I didn't realize it was that long.
It is, yes. I actually have a mystery series that I signed the contract for at the beginning of January, and I turned the first book in, and I think it's the 1st of August or the 1st of September. I can't remember off the top of my head now. And then it won't come out until that, a year from that. So even from the time that I turned it in, I turned the what we call a proposal. So it was all the stories and what I wanted for the story and what the overview and the characters and all that stuff. I turned it into him, I believe, at the beginning of November. And they make pretty quick decisions when you're already with that house. So then we got the contract, and then, so, yeah. But then after that, I'll turn it in September, therefore, and then it'll come out about a year later.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's a lot that goes in between there. Like, there's a lot of edits and things that we do. They'll do what they call a macro edit, a lot of places call it, and that's when they read over it and go, I think you should set it in Montana instead of Oklahoma. Okay, or something big changes. It's usually not that, but that's when those big changes come, where they decide if there's something inherently wrong or flawed with the story, and they get suggestions. Then after that goes, then you do line edits, and there's usually 1 or 2 of those I get, and then they do what they call galleys or design pages, where you get the book and it looks just like it would if it was a book. So I get an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and it's blocked off to be a book. So when the book is printed, everything that's on that one page will be on the one page in the actual book. And that's when you can tell and see if, like, lines are going to be off, or spaces are wrong, or anything like that. So They don't make any changes unless they're major typos or major grammar errors. It's just all about the look of it at that point. So it goes through a lot of edits before it hits the shelves.
Do you have a lot of say in the changes, or, I mean, has it ever been a really, really hard thing for you to abide by some of the changes that they want to make?
Oh yes, oh yes. Sometimes it's really hard, and then sometimes it's like, well, no, I can do that. That's no big deal. It just depends on the editor. Some editors really like to have their hands in the books, and some editors don't. It's really funny. I think I was talking to my assistant today about this. When I first signed on with Kensington, which is my publisher now for the Amish books, they would correct every grammar I had. So if I said, he don't do that anymore, they would correct it, and I would go, okay, these people are country, they're Amish, they live in Oklahoma, that's how they're going to talk. And they would correct every one of them and make them correct English, and that's their job. And then I would come back and go, no, it really needs to be this, or it really needs to be this way, and I would explain why. And it's gotten now to the point that I've worked with them so much, because we're fixing to do the 6th book with them. They know that that's kind of the rhythm of the speech and stuff. So it just depends on the editor. I've only once or twice had really big changes that just killed me. But most of the time, and of course we're writers, and we have sensitive hearts. We put our baby out there, and somebody said it was good, but just not quite good enough. And so sometimes I'll read a change and go, I'm not changing that. Forget it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And then the next day I'm like, okay, it's not so bad. I'll change it. You just kind of have to let it gel and sink in that maybe that changes for the best. But most editors, I think, and they've been told this, that their job is to correct any mistakes and make your work fit into their line's worldview or their line's criteria for something. Oh, y'all, I've got a visitor. This is Jack. He's not nearly as well behaved as as Angie's muse, but he had to come see what was going on.
He's adorable.
Isn't he funny? He's not my writing partner. My writing partner is running around here somewhere. He's a polydactyl, and he usually is right on the end of the bed whenever I write. But yeah. I'm sorry?
What's a polydactyl?
A polydactyl. Some people call them Hemingways. They have extra toes. So I have a little tabby cat. He's a tan and black tabby cat, and he's got 23 toes total. He should have 18. They have 5 on each front foot and 4 on each back foot, and he's got 6, 7, and then 5 on both back feet.
Muse has.
It looks like a hand, and
Yep.
he can open doors, so he's pretty funny.
Muse is very similar. He's got 6 toes on each one and tufts between his toes. He is a polydactyl.
Uh-huh.
The hard part about them is their toes work independently while a lot of other cats don't.
Yes.
And so when they grab on, they grab on.
They grab like this, just like a thumb.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. Yeah, now Jack has the tufts, but Feets just has the extra toes. And yes, his name is Feets. My husband's decided that he needed a gangster name. So his given name is Jimmy 6 Feet because he has enough toes for 6 feet. That's what happens when you let a writer name a cat. So did anybody have any more questions about the book? I think we got lots of time.
I do.
Somebody give me a question.
Okay, well, as I was reading the book, I totally expected Walt to leave Penny and, go find this guy that framed him and everything. So I was totally surprised. It was totally unexpected when this Ralston James just comes riding up to her farm, you know, on his horse, I just, you know, couldn't believe that he showed up like that. I was kind of interested when you were explaining that, you know, here they were cloistered on the farm and everything, and so you had to bring people to them, so that kind of explained that, but I was surprised that happened, and I just wondered if you could explain your reason for doing it. Was there any other reason for doing it that way?
Yes, some of it is that time factor because you have so many pages to get all of it in. But I also wanted him to not be on his game when he met Ralston again. So I felt that Wash needed to be taken by surprise. And the only way to do that was to bring James to him and then have him have to make a decision, because if he had left the farm and gone in search of him, then he would have made his decision already. He would have it in his head. He would have whatever means he was going to use to kill him to get his vengeance. He would have all of his self collected. But by bringing Ralston to Penny's farm, it totally took his element of control away. Excuse me. So he had to make a split decision when he wasn't really ready to make all the little decisions about it. Excuse me, guys. So that's why I had him come. This is feet. See them feet? There we go. Isn't that great? He's bashful. Sorry about that. So that's why I wanted him, because I really didn't feel like his heart was in the vengeance. Like I said, he had felt like he had lost his faith. He felt like things were, excuse me, he felt like that his life, you know, like his life was out of control, but it really wasn't. His faith was still there. His belief in God was still there. He just had lost touch with it from the events that had happened. And so by putting Ralston in front of him and giving him an opportunity when he wasn't prepared, I think it made him realize that if he did anything, that it was wrong. It was wrong.
Right.
You know how sometimes when you make plans, I'm sorry, guys, it is so bad allergies in Oklahoma right now. They say this is the worst place to live with allergies. I believe them. But you know how when you make plans, I'm this way. Like, I'll make a plan that, whatever, we're going to go to the movie at 7 o'clock on Saturday night, and we're going to see the new Avengers movie. And I've got it in my head that at 7 o'clock on Saturday night, we're going to see the Avengers. And so that when somebody goes, hey, let's go to the 5 o'clock movie, by the time, I'm like, what? How can you go to the 5 o'clock movie? We've already said we're going to the 7 o'clock movie. So that's kind of how Wash is. If he gets it all in his head, that how he's going to do this, how he's going to kill James, how he's going to get, excuse me, how he's going to get his vengeance, and he carries it out, it would almost be like an autopilot because he's planned it for so long. And I wanted him to be confronted with circumstances that weren't in his control at that point.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that was a totally good call. It just was unexpected to me, but I see the reason for that.
Oh, well, that's good. I like to be unexpected. I like to be unexpected. Sometimes you think, well, if I knew it was going to happen, then everybody had to have known it was going to happen. So it's fun to step back as a writer and hear people say, I didn't expect that, or I really wasn't sure if she was going to carry through with that, or whatever it is that your characters do. Sometimes characters do things that we don't expect them to do. Excuse me. I say often that I take dictation. So when Penny is like on her little, I don't want to say rampage, but when she has decided that that Wash needs to get back with God, and he needs to pray, and he needs to read the Bible, and he needs to. She kind of took over on her own, and she surprised me with her measures of that she went to convince Wash that he needed to get himself back right with God and forget vengeance. I thought that was surprising, but I thought she really showed her personality and how strong she was, and that's part of her beauty as he sees it. I love when they're talking after they have their kiss, and she said something to him about it was the best kiss she ever had. And he's like, the best? And he's, kind of getting all, and she's like, well, don't get too excited because it's the only one I've ever had. And he's like, the only one? What's wrong with the guys around here? That's your only kiss. And she's like, can't you see me? And don't you know what I look like? And he doesn't see her the same way that she sees him. So I love that part where he says, you have strength and you have resilience, and what do you need beauty for?
I still wanted him to say the words though that she was beautiful.
Yeah.
Somehow I was waiting for that. It didn't happen.
I've got a cat hair in my mouth, believe it or not. I don't know where that came from. I know what you're saying, but Jackson had told her that she was beautiful, and that's what tipped her off to his insincerity, because once he told her that she was beautiful, she knew that he was really after the land. So I feel that if Wash had told her that she was beautiful as well, then he would, she couldn't have believed him, and I think it would have made her feelings for him, it would just have tainted it.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I wanted that too. That was weird. That's one of those things that when the story started out, that had been the plan all along. And then when I got to the point where he would have told her how beautiful he thought she was, then I realized that if he actually went through with it, then she could all misinterpret what he was saying to be the way Jackson was. So, anybody? I'm sorry?
I totally agree too, because I felt like at the beginning of the book when she was saying so many times over and over how she was not pretty and all these things, I almost felt like going back and counting how many negative things could she say about herself. It was just one right after another, so she totally felt that way. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just not true in this time frame, but very true now. I have a teenage granddaughter, and high school is just murder and on these kids if they're not perfect in every way. So I appreciated it so much that he really didn't tell her that she was pretty, but that he said he saw a survivor, a woman with strength, resilience, and fortitude. And I love the line, when you have all that, what is beauty?
What is beauty? I know. And he did that all on his own. That was one of those dictation times. He completely took over that scene, and I just wrote what he said to her out of my head. And I loved that about him, because they say beauty fades, and but she has more than that, because she is strong, and she's not going to be bullied, and she's not going to be bullied to the point that she takes matters into her own hands, goes and buys herself a husband, and I think he admires her for that. I do. I admire her for that. Can you imagine going into the jail and buying a husband that you don't know what he's done, you don't know his name? I mean, the sheriff has to tell her his name. I can't imagine tying myself to someone that way. I just think that's floors me. My husband is a deputy sheriff, and he has worked at our county jail before, and it's huge. It's the size of a town. I can't imagine going in there and going, I'll marry him. So, you know, so she does have a lot of strength and resilience that she can't even see in herself. She just sees it as, I do what I have to do.
Right.
And I think a lot of women do that and say that. I know I do. People will go, oh, I don't know how you did this. I don't know how you do that. And then you do what you got to do. And that's Penny. She did what she had to do. But that's part of what makes her beautiful. And it's not just outside. I mean, she's not really that pretty on the outside. I don't even really have her as plain. I pretty much wanted her to be kind of the homely woman. Pamela Morrissey did a book years and years ago, called Courting Miss Hattie. And the girl in the book, I think they called her Horseface Hattie. So, yeah, so she, and the guy she ends up marrying is a lot younger than her. And she has trouble believing that he would fall in love with her because she knows what she looks like. She sees herself in the mirror every day, and she's not the pretty, you know, the pretty one. And so, I don't know. I just think it's fun to try to take a character that is unexpected and then put them with somebody that can make them see themselves differently. I think that's the most beautiful part of love, is that you don't see how someone sees you. And books are like that too. Like, I'll have somebody email me about a book or a story like this and say, oh, I love how I did another collection with Barbara called The 12 Brides of Christmas, and one of the stories in there, the girl wants this man to fall in love with her so badly that she goes and trades her second best dress to the old crazy lady at the end of the lane to get this bag of love herbs so that she's going to bake him in cookies so that he'll fall in love with her. Didn't think about it anything other than it was kind of goofy and kind of funny, and I could do this almost like slapstick, you know, historical. There's one scene where they're pulling each other up and down off the couch and off the divan, and there's just really, really funny. And then I had somebody say, I love how you showed that she needed to trust God and not push things out of God's time. And I was like, well, you know, she didn't, but I didn't think about that when I was writing it. Like, it came out of the story and was part of the story inherently, but I didn't pinpoint it. So it's really neat when people can pick those little pieces out of a story, and it's something that they got from it that maybe I didn't even get from it myself the first time. And I wrote it, so it's kind of crazy, but it's fun though. I love hearing what people see in the characters, and differently than what I see in the characters.
And I thought that about, you know, I know that you portrayed her as strong throughout the story, but I appreciated how strong she was in her faith, because, you know, even going in to the jail, she was already, you know, speaking with God, you know, that I'm making the right choice, and that, you know, this is what she perceived was her will, you know, that he had for her, and then, you know, and how strong she was about Wash, and how, you know, with his faith, and I appreciated how strong she was and how much she leaned on God throughout the story, because I think she's one of the characters, even though I know it's the novella is the Christian based, I feel like she was one of the characters that almost spoke to God more often than maybe some of the other ones. Yeah.
Well, and sometimes that can be the situations that the characters find themselves in too. She's a little desperate. You know, she wants to keep her family farm going, and if she loses faith, she has nothing. I mean, she has a farm. That's it, you know, and she's going to lose that, and so she has to have her faith. I've had stories where it's not so much that the character goes to God for things, because they're all right with God and everything's good, you know. And Penny, I think, is feeling a little bit excuse me, I don't say abandoned, but like she's like, it's time, God. I've prayed, I've held my faith, I've, you know, and I'm hanging in there, but it's time. I need back, and He does. He provides, and I think that's always a special message in Christian books. I've heard a lot of people say that don't write for the genre or don't read anything in the Christian market, that like they almost all have to have like a come to Jesus kind of moment. And so I think some do and some don't, and depending on the characters and where they are, I think some of that those faith elements play heavier. I've got books where everything's right between them and God the whole book, and so it's never an issue on whether or not they're going to lose their faith, or that's never even brought up. And then I have it where they start off the very first paragraph being a little behind the eight ball when it comes to their faith, losing their faith, or not having it anymore, not having it at all. I have one character that was raised in a hippie commune in Oregon, so he never even heard about God. Not really, and so they did a lot of talking about God in that one, just because he was trying to understand God from her perspective.
That one wasn't Amish, was it?
It was Amish. It was the second Amish book I wrote was called Katie's Choice, and he is his name is Zane, and he is a reporter that's brought in to do a story about the Amish in Oklahoma. Yes, there are Amish in Oklahoma, and he's brought in to do this story, and he needs this story, and he ends up falling in love with Katie. So, but yeah, he was a hippie. His parents were hippies, raised in a commune, and yeah. It's one of those things where I felt that it would be easier for someone to accept the stringent faith of the Amish if they had none to begin with. Does that make sense? So, like, I used to run a shoe store. That used to be my day job, and I would very rarely hire people that had shoe store experience, because every time you brought them to the stock room, they were like, well, at Dillard's we did it this way. At such and such we did it this way. And I'm like, no, you're here now, and this is how we do it. So I would bring in people that maybe had some retail experience but not any other experience, and then teach them what I wanted them to know about the shoe business. And I think that's where I was with Zane. He comes in a blank slate, and then he can learn God from Katie, how she sees God as an Amish woman.
What?
Do you read much Amish? Do you read the Amish books?
No, I don't, but that's what I was going to ask you. What made you want to start writing Amish?
It's one of those, it was never my dream to write Amish. I'm usually pretty upfront about it. My agent told me to. It was a really interesting conversation. I started off writing contemporary secular romance, and I called my agent one day and said, hey, I need to know where my book is, like, what are we doing? I felt like it was all slipping away. I hadn't sold anything yet, and she had just come back from the ACFW conference, the American Christian Fiction Writers, because this was the 1st of October, and that conference is in mid to late September. And she came in and said, hey, I'll tell you what you need to write if you'll write, but don't laugh. And I've been saying for years that all I wanted was somebody to tell me what to write, and I would write it. And so I said, okay, I won't laugh. What do you think I should write? And she said, Amish romance, and I laughed, and then I apologized, and I said, you say Amish, I say witness, and the conversation is completely over. Like, we're done. And she said, no, it's this huge budding genre. You need to check it out. Go down to your local Christian bookstore, look at the shelves, and see. So I had been saying for almost 20 years, if somebody would just tell me what to write, I would write it, and then I would have the magic formula. So she told me, how could I not do it, right? I asked and I received. So I went down to Mardell's, and I had women very gently pushing me out of the way to get the next one in the series. And I haven't read this one. Have you read this one? This one's so good. You need to read this author. And I actually stopped them and said, what what draws you to these books? Why do you read them? What is it about them that you like? And they were telling me, you know, that they're very gentle romances. They're very, I don't want to say slow because that sounds negative, but it's a very it's a very slow romance. Like, it's very elongated. It's not, you know, they're in love by page 2. It's a different set. And then the people that follow the Amish romances and the Amish fiction are very, very loyal, and they love those Amish books. I have people that are on, like, my street team and things, and that's all they read are the Amish books. So I thought I could write one, so I did. And she sold it, and that rest is kind of history. We're into book, let's see, book 6 of the, no, book 4 of the Wells Landing series. I can't even remember my own series name. Book 4 of the Wells Landing series comes out next month, and then there's the Clover Ridge series before that. So I'm on my 7th published Amish book, and then there's one that's in the wings that they're in all the process of getting ready to be released in January next year. And then in a couple of months, I start the 6th one in that series. So it's held up, but it was different. It was very different doing that research. That's research you can completely get yourself lost in too, but I love doing it because I can go there. I can't go back in history. I wish I could. I would love to see some of the sites in the Old West and, you know, Oklahoma before it became a state and all that great stuff. But the Amish, you can go visit. You can go visit them, and you can see and live, and, you know, it's pretty incredible doing the research. I spent 7 days in Pennsylvania last year in September with my Amish friend living in her house, and it was pretty crazy. It's not as different as you think, and then it is. So.
Amy, so your assistant is on with us?
She is.
Hey. And I'm sorry, I know you were introduced in the beginning. What is your name again?
My name is Stacy.
Stacy. Okay, so what role does an assistant play to the writer?
Do you want me to answer that, Aim, or do you want to?
Oh my gosh. Well, see, I say she's my assistant. Doesn't that sound professional? And ta-da, this is my assistant. She's also my best friend, and she does anything that I don't want to do. Except some of those edits. She helps me with running content giveaways. She helps me with having my street team, which are just a group of readers that are kind of committed to helping you spread the word about your books. She helps me when I need help with, like, Facebook posts, or I'm staring down a deadline that I've got to have some stuff done by Wednesday. And so if you see me on Facebook tomorrow, it's probably Stacy. Yeah, people are like, yeah, you have all this time. You're on Facebook all the time. And I'm like, yeah, I am. But she takes care of everything for me, and it's wonderful because I feel completely blessed, because a lot of people don't have an assistant like mine. They don't have an assistant that they can call any time of day or night and go, I need this now. Or they can vent to the way I vent to her, and she works for nail polish, so that's amazing. You gotta have a good friend. Yes. But I can completely trust her, and I don't think very many people have that at all, because most assistants are, you know, like, completely, you know, that's what they do. They're virtual assistants, and that's what they do for several people, and they work 10 hours a week for 4 different authors, and, you know, make their money that way. But I know that I can super trust her to do, to sound like me, and if I need for her too, and just take care of everything for me. And yeah, God's looking out for me. Did anybody else have a question?
I have a question along that line, not related to this book per se, but when you first started out writing, it may be a little different now. You were talking about the marketing aspect of it, you know, on Facebook and this and that. How do you get these stories out there? Do you pay the publisher? Do they handle that? Do you have an agent you hire?
Well, are you talking about getting it out, like getting the word out on social media, or?
You write a book, okay, so whether, like, independent Amish series, okay, that's yours, right? That's not part of a series like the Lassoed by Marriage.
Right.
It's a little, so you have your assistant, you have an agent, you have the publisher who handles that. I mean, do you do, like, book signings? That's, what do you, because I've never, I mean, this is great, and I hear about some of this stuff through, like, church, but I just wonder how you get it out there.
Yes, it's all of that, It's a collaborative effort. You know, back in the day before we had Facebook and email and, you know, I wasn't published yet, but there were writers that somehow managed to get their books out, and the whole dynamics of book selling was different. Now we have Amazon, we have online booksellers, and so it takes a lot. It's like it takes a village. So yes, my agent helps. Yes, my assistant helps. We have, you know, street teams are a big thing that authors have. Some of them come up with cute names. Like I have a friend that her last name is Crown, like Thomas Crown, and she's got Crown's Crew. I'm so incredibly clever. I call mine a street team. But I wanted people to be able to find it really easy on Facebook if they wanted to join. But those people are the people who, like, share things on Facebook and tweet for you and share things on Instagram and like things and repin and all that fun little stuff. They help a lot. Most street teams run off of quid pro quo, I guess. I will send some street team members a book, and they'll review it, and then if they review that book, then I send them the next one, and so they get to read the book, and then I get a review on Amazon, and so that's an effort that goes into place. Publishers, depending on the publisher, will buy ads and things. I just got the marketing for Just Plain Sadie, which is the next Amish one that's coming out, and they're doing some different things now. I'm on book 4 with them, so I'm getting a few different things in social media from them. I actually lobbied to have them make a Sweet Reads page on Pinterest because they had a page for everything else, but they didn't have one for all the sweet books that they put out. So they're doing a contest, a giveaway somehow if you pin to the Sweet Reads page over there on Kensington. So they're working on their things. I'm doing my things. I've got blog posts that I'm going to put up, and it's really the hardest part of it all is it's a year later. So it's a year now since I've even looked at Sadie. Well, it's probably 8 months. And so I have to think about things, and sometimes people will say, oh, and that scene where they were in the restaurant eating pie, and I'm like, they were in a restaurant eating pie? Because I'm so far away from it. Now at this point, I'm writing the next one. I've written one, and I'm fixing to write the next one. And so you're a little far removed from it. So it's great to have those people that it's fresh to out helping. That's the biggest thing. But yeah, it's a complete, it takes a village. It's a complete effort between the publishers and your agent, assisted street teams, your mother, anybody that you can coerce, blackmail, or beg to help you get the word out. Newsletters, things like that. That's all that authors are using right now, and it's so much electronic. They say book signings can go either way. A lot of times when we have book signings, I end up being new to people, and so I might sell a few books, but not a ton. But if you're out there making contacts, that's always a good thing. So I do a little bit of all of that. I try to speak at writers' conferences if at all possible, and meet other writers, and it gives you something to put on Facebook besides I was in my pajamas for 3 days, because sometimes writers really kind of hermit out. I know I can totally be a hermit and not leave the house other than to run my son to school and come back home. So anytime that I can get out, it always helps.
Speaking to that, here I am.
Yeah, I know. I know. And so funny. I'm looking at myself in this, and I'm like, I have on makeup. Where'd my makeup go? And I hardly wear makeup anymore. That it felt like it was caked on and really dark. And then I sat down and was like, I have no lips. Because I'm not used to seeing myself that way. But it's funny how I used to get up every day and go to work at full makeup and heels and dress slacks and skirts and da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and now that's a writer's life, though. It's all good. It's all good.
How long have you been a full-time writer then?
I started writing full-time in, I want to say 2012. I really had a unique situation where I ended up with arthritis and fibromyalgia like in an instant. It was crazy. It was brought on by a weird virus, and so I went from fine to constant pain in a day. That was fun. And so I couldn't stand on my feet like that anymore. And here I am. This was my next job option. And so I was already writing and everything. I've been writing for a long time. And I just, wasn't really quite prepared to make it my job. So you have to look at it a little bit differently. Like I said, taking those call outs from Barber and going, I can write a Amish book. Sure I can. Absolutely. I can write a whole Amish series, It's funny how, I used to only write what my muse told me, and now I write, I have contemporary books that are traditional in the secular market. I've got Amish books. I've got mysteries. I've got historicals. It's like I'll pretty much write anything that won't write me first. But it's fun, and I'm a little bit like all over the place anyway, so it kind of suits my personality. I don't think my agent or my publishers, either one would. I think they would think something I was sick if I came in and went, I don't have any new ideas right now. Yeah. And they would go, oh, are you okay? So that's okay, though. It's fun. It's fun. It's challenging, and it's fun because when you are at home and working from home, you just never know, what each day will bring, and then you're home. So everybody thinks that since you're home, you can run their lunch to them, and I forgot my ID, and I need my ID again, Mom, and I'm going to stop by for lunch so you can make me a sandwich. And, my mom calls, and, my sister calls and want to talk about my mom, and, I'm like, I've got work to do. And it's easily to get distracted. Yeah.
I would completely agree with you.
Do you find that, Angela? Yeah.
Yeah. I find that having a job in my home is both fun because I don't have to dress in the three-piece suits anymore and that kind of a thing. But it's fun to go out and meet people. And I'll add on to the question of how do we market and how do we tell people about our books. This is one way, meeting with book clubs. Yeah, and I think, but going to your own home and then having a target place in your home, that's your office, that's where you work, and then having people that do call any time of the day or night, and they don't know your schedule, so that's a hard part because you don't work 8 to 5 anymore. You work whatever the deadline requires.
Right, and all the time. I will work in the morning and in the night, and I work in the bedroom, and this is the spare room, and I work in the living room, and one time I couldn't get comfortable, so I went in my son's room and wrote, and I just have a laptop, and I go all over the house like a little satellite.
Me too.
Yeah, and then I've got some edits due Wednesday, and I've got a first chapter of the next book in that series due Wednesday, and not quite there yet, so I'll stay up till probably 12 or 1 tonight and work on that, and then get up first thing in the morning and work on it, and you just don't have a set time. And I don't know about you, Angela, but I work better the closer I get to the deadline.
My husband says that's the case for me too, and the problem is when you catch the flu, you don't get day, like a regular job, you might have a sick day.
Mm-hmm.
A regular job, and it doesn't matter. You still have to work.
You still have to work, and people still expect you to be out there. And and the closer I get to a deadline, the more focused I seem I can make myself,
100%.
or the more focused Stacy makes me.
That's right.
Cracks the whip, get to work.
Well, we're coming to the end of the time now. Do y'all have any more questions for Miss Amy?
I just have one more question, unless someone else has something. What advice would you give to a writer, someone who wants to get into this business? What's the first step? It's not me. I'm just throwing that out there. What would that be?
Well, as a store manager and owner, those are the people that get the question a lot from people that are coming in as readers. So, Amy, give your advice.
I would say join the local writers group, and if you don't have a local writers group, join a national group. Like I'm a member of ACFW and RWA, and then I'm also a member of NINC, which is novelist writers, and then the Authors Guild. But those groups like RWA and ACFW can be so incredibly important when you're first starting out, because it's veterans really helping people come into the business. Writers, especially romance writers, seem to be the most giving of anybody I've ever seen. We completely give back to the people that are coming up behind us. So I wouldn't be anywhere near where I am right now if I hadn't have joined the local writers group. And unfortunately, that group's not here anymore. But they helped me. They helped me find a critique group. They helped me find a continuing education class about writing books. They helped me. I'm still friends with a lot of them. Let's go eat lunch and that kind of thing. But those writers groups, I think that's the most important thing for me, was being able to walk into a room and say, I'm writing a romance novel, and everybody going, yeah, so am I, instead of, oh, you are. How nice for you to write a book. You get the looks like, it's a romance, and then you get the looks like, sure, you're writing a book. And so it's really nice to have those kindred spirits around you, that you don't feel like the odd man out anymore. That was real important to me. But they are very awesome resources for people. And online now, there's tons of resources. So if your friend can't find a local group, there is an online group out there.
And I would add to that's 100% how it went for me too. But I would also add that there are writing conferences that you can go to. Mm-hmm. And one coming up this next month is called Mount Hermon Christian Writers Conference. And I cannot tell you the amount of times I have heard author after author after author say they're published because they went to that conference.
I've heard that too.
Yeah, it's like the premier conference. But then out in your area, there's other writers' conferences like, Amy, what's that one at the college? I can't think of it all of a sudden.
Me?
Huh?
Did you say me?
Yeah. There's one that's at a college that's kind of Midwest there, and any other day I could think of it. It's a Christian one, and it's every June. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
I do, but I've never been.
Yeah, it starts with a W, I think. And anyway, that one and Mount Hermon, and then there's Blue Ridge and Christian Writers Conference. There's a Florida one that's happening this week. There's a Florida Christian Writing Conference. It's with the Word Weavers. And I posted Word Weavers. Can you guys see on the sideline when I was talking? I was putting in a couple different things just in case you couldn't quite catch the words. But American Christian Fiction Writers is fiction writing. Romance Writers of America is romantic fiction only, and there's so many genres and it's amazing. The other is a place that Amy belongs to, and she suggested to me that they help you with a lot of legal stuff and help you understand the business side. right?
Right, yeah, they're really good. I think you have to be published to be in, and you can be self-published, but there's a certain criteria of income to join the guild. But NINC, I'm not sure if you have to or not. But like if they're a romance writer, Romance Writers of America, it's a must. Even if it's only to get the RWR and look at the conferences and the contests that are held, because contests are very, very beneficial. You can get a critique from somebody that's not your friend, because a lot of times when you join critique groups, you all become friends, and nobody wants to hurt your feelings and say, this is terrible, you need to change this. And I'll tell you, editors aren't bashful about saying that. So if all else fails and there is no writers group and there is no online writers group, if they have a friend who can honestly tell them the truth and not just what they want to hear, and that's hard to do, like that's hard to accept and it's hard to do for somebody. Say this is really not working. But you're not, I mean, that's part of being a friend, you know, if you're really writer friends. And but if you can find somebody like that, they will be invaluable. Plus, it helps thicken up your skin.
Which you need.
Skin's a must.
You need that.
You do. There are days when it slips, but you need for it to be most of the time.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And if you have any more questions, you know, I've got a website, and you can contact me on my website. It goes straight to my email box, and it never hits spam. I've never had one of those come in spam, so that's usually the easiest way to get in touch with me. If she has any questions or anything, she's welcome to email me, because we're all in this together, and I can tell you everything I know, and I still know it. So I'm happy to share.
What's your website, Amy?
You can go to www.amylillardbooks.com.
Amy Lillard Books.
Yeah, Lard. There's just one I.
Got it. Okay.
John Dillard, just like I always tell people, it's Dillard's with an L. Yeah. They copied us, you know.
Any other or comments or questions?
No, I think we're good. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me. I hope you guys have a great time doing this. This was a lot of fun talking to people. I love talking to people, readers, and finding out, you know, how they felt about the book. So that's great. Thank you so much for allowing me to be your part of your group.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Do you need me to stay on at all for a minute so that you can catch any of these things on the sidebar?
No,
I think we're okay.
I think we're okay.
Okay. Thank you so much, Amy Lillard. And thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Y'all have a good night.
Hang out too.
And thank you to the ladies of the Lassoed by Romance Writers Book Club. This has been so much fun. Thank you to the Faith Church, the Vine in Dyer, Indiana. We appreciate you very much. All right, we shall see you later, and I will start this uploading for anyone else who wasn't able to come tonight. And we'll see you next week. And our author next week is going to be Gina Wellborn, and she's a kid. So you have a lot of fun with her. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Feel better soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.